For centuries we call this island, located within the Mediterranean, Corsica. Its location southeast of modern-day France and west of what we today know as Italy made it such that the island has a complex and eventful history which dates back thousands of years. Due to its strategic value, Corsica has been a coveted prize for various civilizations throughout history. Because of this reason, it only seems fitting that we start Season 2 of our journey through the tumultuous history of Europe here, as it is on this island where we will first encounter a peoples from across the other side of the Mediterranean Sea, known as the Carthaginians. The founding of the city of Carthage dates back to the year 814 BCE, initiated by a group of Phoenician settlers who had sailed from the city of Tyre. At that time, Tyre was one of the major city-states of the ancient Thalassocratic civilization that was originated from the Levant region of the eastern Mediterranean. In the modern-day era, this region is known as Lebanon and the coastal area of Syria. The Phoenicians were primarily a merchant society that dwelt along a narrow strip of coastal land. Similar to the ancient Greeks, they were separated across different city-states and due to the size of their population were unable to support a large army. Even before the foundation of the city of Carthage, Phoenicia underwent the Assyrian conquest in 858 BCE, led by King Salmaneser III. While most of the Phoenician land was not annexed at that time, they were forced to pay tributes and taxes. In the ensuing years, under the rule of Tiglath-Pileser III, the Levant region was subsequently predominantly captured by the Assyrians, with only the major cities of Tyre and Byblos managing to evade their conquest for now. With the Phoenician sphere of influence over their foreign overseas colonies and trade posts progressively diminishing, the city of Carthage was now emerging as an independent city-state from 650 BCE and onwards. The Carthaginians started looking at expanding their reach throughout the Mediterranean. Carthage was able to build upon the foundations laid within the Mediterranean by their Phoenician ancestors, and for a long time still sent financial tributes to their sister city of Tyre. When we reach the year 550 BCE, it was the Carthaginians and the Etruscans which had developed a large network of colonies and trading posts across the Mediterranean, who now felt threatened by the ever-expanding Greeks. The Greek expansion was not something that had developed overnight, as in 750 BCE the Greeks had started settling along the south coast of Italy by founding the settlement of Cumae, which was followed by Naxos in Sicily. Throughout the following century, Greek settlers continued to raise new settlements throughout this same area. This resulted in the Greeks being able to dominate and rule the Strait of Messina. The resulting turbulent encounters between the Etruscans and the Greeks culminated in several small clashes, which in the end failed to impede the Greek colonization movement. Despite the lack of coordinated effort, multiple Greek cities established colonies simultaneously, which to the Phoenician, Carthaginians and Etruscans appeared to be an inundation of Greek influence along the Tyrrhenian coast. This region now became known as Magna Graecia, and the Greeks residing in this area mirrored their mainland counterparts by expanding their political and commercial pursuits, all the while maintaining the long-standing Ionian-Dorian rivalry. In addition, this colonization surge offered a wealth of prospects for increased trade, piracy, and hostilities between the Etruscans, Carthaginians, and Greeks, who all of which vied for control over the maritime trade routes within the Mediterranean Sea. Even though the Etruscans and the Carthaginians felt the entire Greek expansion across the Mediterranean was a threat to them, it is important to remember that the Greeks were also divided into different groups with different intentions. More specifically, it were the Phocaean Greeks who in previous years had founded the colony of Massalia. Massalia continued to flourish into a prosperous hub for trade, establishing themselves as a formidable competitor to Carthage for control over the lucrative Spanish markets and tin trade through Gaul, Meanwhile, the Phocaeans also established a colony named Alalia on the island of Corsica in 562 BCE, thereby further expanding their reach in the region. In the years thereafter, the city of Phocaea itself, from which these Greek settlers had originated, fell in the hands of Cyrus the Great of Persia. The remaining Phocaeans, as a result, now shifted their base to Alalia. This move was facilitated in part by the fact that they enjoyed amicable relations with the Greek colonies located along the Strait of Messina, who had even granted them a toll-free passage. With the Phocaean Greeks now having established a strong foothold, the tensions between the three sides was growing rapidly, with the balance of power being as follows. Carthage was busy defending Punic colonies in Sicily, while at the same time expanding its territory in Sardinia. Carthage slowly became the sole protector of the Punic colonies in the Mediterranean, as Tyre was grappling with a losing battle against the Babylonian domination. Meanwhile, the Etruscans were initially focused on expanding their presence and influence across Italy. This included the formation of the Etruscan League, which further amplified their regional power. As for the Greeks, they had set their sights on Carthaginian and Etruscan trade in and around Corsica, continuing to do so for an unchecked period of 5 years between 545 and 540 BCE. With a now looming threat that the Greeks might aim to conquer northern Italy and Sardinia, the Etruscans and Carthaginians united their forces in 540 BCE to oppose the Greeks. It remains unclear whether the Carthaginians had allied themselves with the Etruscan League as a whole or individual Etruscan cities directly. The water was a deep shade of blue, reflecting the clear sky above. The sun was shining brightly, casting a warm and inviting glow over the entire area. The air was filled with the salty tang of the sea and the gentle breeze carrying with it the sound of seagulls calling to one another. Small ripples lapped against the sides of the ships as the masts and the riggings made creaking sounds under their movement. In the distance, the rugged and majestic coastline of Corsica could be seen, with green forests and rocky cliffs reaching down to the shore. It was a serene and peaceful setting, with nothing to suggest the violence and chaos that would soon erupt as the two fleets approached each other. The Phocaean Greeks set sail with their fleet of 60 pentaconters. The allied force of the Etruscan and Carthaginians was roughly double in size, consisting also of the same type of vessels. As they approached each other, the tension grew thick. The sound of the waves breaking against the ships was only interrupted by the steady beat of drums coming from the Etruscan and Carthaginian ships, sailing head-on towards the defending Greeks. The two sides clashed into battle with a deafening roar of splintering wood and metal, as the ships slammed into each other. The battle was fierce, with sailors fighting hand to hand, wielding swords and spears, their faces twisted in anger and determination. The color of the sea started to shift from a dark blue to a dark red as the losses on both sides mounted. The Greeks fought bravely, but the allied forces proved to be formidable opponents, with the Greek fleet quickly reduced to less than half its original size. Despite this, they continued fighting with ferocity and resilience, determined to protect their colony. After a grueling battle that seemed to last forever, it was the alliance of Etruscans and Carthaginians that sounded the retreat. As they left the chaos of the battle behind, they managed to take with them a number of Greek soldiers as their prisoners. Despite winning the battle only narrowly, the remaining Greek forces realized that the rams of their surviving ships were severely damaged, and it was clear that they could not withstand another attack. They therefore decided it was better to evacuate Corsica and seek refuge in region in Italy. Meanwhile, the Etruscans conquered Corsica, while Carthage expanded its influence in Sardinia. The aftermath for the Greek soldiers who ended up as prisoners did not end well. Legend has it that the Etruscans executed their Greek prisoners at the city of Carthage, while the Carthaginians sold their share of the prisoners into slavery. The exact losses on both sides are not known, but it's clear that the Greeks suffered greatly for what was only a Pyrrhic victory, while losing a roughly estimated 2/3 of their fleet. Despite the Greeks losing a vast amount of their ships, the Carthaginians were unable to further strengthen their naval dominance as they tried to go up against the navy of Massalia. Carthage engaged in 2 more major naval battles with the Massalian Greeks, but were defeated in both of these battles. Regardless of these defeats, Carthage still managed to close off the Strait of Gibraltar, bringing a halt to the Greek expansion into modern-day Spain. It would also not be the last time that the Greeks and Carthaginians would stand on opposing sides of the battlefield. In fact, this initial encounter at the Battle of Alalia marked the inception of a lasting conflict between both peoples, which ultimately culminated in the Sicilian Wars.